Good afternoon, everyone. First off, thank you for coming to hear me talk about more storms and more maps, if we haven't heard that enough already. My name is Ben Alamong. I'm a GIS specialist with the City of Hendersonville. I'll show on a map where that is in a minute. And the application that we submitted for the Herb Stout was a very basic map in terms of mapping applications. I think everyone here has probably made something way more sophisticated, more unique. But this was under different circumstances. So before I talk about the map, I do want to paint a picture of just what we were dealing with. So if you haven't heard by now, Friday, September 27th, 2024, Helene rips through western North Carolina. You know, I've lived in the Blue Ridge all my life. I've never seen a hurricane come through like that. It was awful, honestly. It was a hell of a time to be in, and really like this rainfall data here because we were saturated with rain for days before. So Thursday I went out, and the French Broad in Asheville was only a few feet away from a major pedestrian bridge or a major vehicle bridge. And you know, you kind of think, oh, that's pretty close. And then by Friday, I was looking where my house is, looking over at the French Broad, 2-story buildings underwater. The bridge that I mentioned was making a ripple effect downstream. So where is Hendersonville? Well, if you notice the dark purple area, we're there. We're right in the middle of it. And the city sits right in the middle of Henderson County. And through Saturday, according to the National Weather Service, we received almost 22 inches of rain, which was the third highest in the region. And whereas we're about 25 miles south of Asheville, it's just off the map there, but the French Broad runs through Asheville. We don't have a major river that runs through, but we have several creeks, several large creeks and tributaries that come through, and we have infrastructure along the Mills River up in the north there. So you can just see how water moved through our city, and found this great model of what localized flooding kind of looked like at a scale like this and how much of our city was affected. So I want to talk about my role, GIS roles in the Emergency Operating Center during this time. So by Saturday, I was able to get a call out to my boss and ask, hey, am I needed? And he just said, please, like, get out there. I had no idea how I was going to get there, how long it would take. I packed a backpack full of snacks and water and hoped my Subaru was not going to be a Scubaroo, and made it to the EOC. And we're only a division of 3 to begin with, and I was the only one that was able to make a physical presence there. So we had some remote help from Travis, which was very helpful, but to be the only one in there kind of in charge of this aspect of mapping, something I've never been in professionally or just in general. We did work for every department. It's no different than usual, but in a time like this, it was fast-paced, it was stressful. Personally speaking, I don't know, some people might thrive in that. We were making maps and getting data for everybody, including legal and finance. Like, everyone needed a GIS aspect in some part. So to start, the storm knocked out cell towers, electricity, water, everything was out. We were able to get a couple Starlinks up pretty quickly. Our IT department was great, established some internal internet that we can use, and I brought a laptop, and it was great because I could also get on my phone for the first time in 48 hours and contact family and friends and hear from people that I could. And as I worked, crews were coming in from the field. We have a large water sewer department, public works, police, fire. They're all coming in and just dropping notes off, handwritten notes of, this is closed, there's a tree down here, there's flooding here, and it was just coming at us. We had several Excel files that were just just being dumped in by data from across the county that I was trying to just sift through and put on a map for any reason that it could be helpful. So if you were at the panel yesterday, I talked a lot about ArcGIS Online and how that was really the only resource that I had to work with in the EOC. I had Arc Pro downloaded on my laptop that I'd never used until that day, that laptop at least. And so I was able to use what was hosted online, put it in Pro, get things moving. We didn't have connection to our network, databases, anything like that those first several days. I want to talk about, this whole thing is about water restoration. So I want to talk about our water utility infrastructure. So with a city of about 16,500, we service nearly 80,000 people throughout the county for drinking water. It makes us the 22nd largest water utility in the state. And these crews, I mean, they were the boots on the ground. They were going out there, they were dealing with the storm, with the flooding, storm debris, just the mayhem it caused on infrastructure. And I just have a few pictures that really don't encapsulate much. But that second and third one, that is our French Broad River intake that just opened, for production not too long before the storm. And you can see someone after the water recede standing at the concrete. Water was 15 feet up there. I mean, it was a lot. So we had to wait for water to even recede to start working. And kind of getting into the meat and potatoes here. So pressure zones are these areas in our water utility. And I apologize to Adam, who is our director, that he might not like how I describe this as well. But these are geographic regions throughout the utility that are serviced by a pump station, by water tanks, just other water pressure valves that kind of control the water going to these areas. And they're all dictated by geography. You have a high elevation and a low elevation. And Hendersonville is kind of unique because due to the size of our utility and just the mountains, we have over 60 individual zones, pressure zones there. So once a pressure zone loses pressure, has low pressure, contaminants can get into the water supply a lot easier. So the city issued a system pressure advisory. People might know that as a boil water advisory, meaning that if you do have water, you need to boil it before you can consume it. So that went out for all 80,000 customers at first until they could kind of start getting a rein on what to do. And they wanted to start with areas with most customers being served. So this is where GIS comes in. Our utilities director came to me one morning in the EOC, and he said, we need a visual map that shows where people, like if your house has drinking water and if it's safe to drink without boiling. We already have a notification system that sends out text, calls, emails, and if you notice, I mentioned there was no network. Cellular network was down. So me as a person who makes a lot of online maps, it felt really ridiculous to try to make an online map in this time, because who is going to use that? But I had a job to do. That's what he asked. And a big thing was we had a few emergency call centers pop up, and they were being overloaded as they were. So one less call to them asking, hey, can I drink my water? That lets them have that resource to help someone else. So that was the two big things, a visual representation and just taking a load off how we can. And we had some data restraints. The hosted data wasn't up to date, from the week before. That would have been lovely. It was a little out of date, so this is a really basic, like GIS 101 kind of map. I went in there and had to just use the basic editing tools to start doing anything. So using the portal tab in Arc Pro, brought in the pressure zones that we had hosted, brought in parcels that we had, and I sat down with someone who knew a little bit better, and we just selected parcels and added them into the pressure zone, just copy and paste. It's a beautiful thing in Pro. It's probably my favorite thing that it does. It's so easy. And from there, I was able to just use Emerge and have these pressure zones a bit better than they were. They weren't perfect, but it was on the fly, and it was all we could do at the time. And using this, I was able to pull in meter data and calculate how many customers were in each pressure zone. That way they knew where to start working. Again, they wanted to start with most customers served and work their way down. And if you haven't used, Arc Online, Arc Pro together, it's great because you can just bring in the hosted layer, make your edits, save it, and it's already showing those changes online. So as we started doing this, I made the status, everything at first was a pressure advisory, but bits and pieces started to come back online. It was safe to drink. So I was changing those to green to represent that. But then we were getting to the point where this line that might service this neighborhood within this larger pressure zone still is not safe to drink. So what do we do there? Again, using parcels, select, and clip, and then you have another pressure zone to use. Just kind of on the fly, able to do this. Those working remotely could do this as well, to kind of give me a break when I needed to. And then we were able to do this within minutes of the water sewer department telling us, hey, this area is safe to drink. Great. So I used Arc dashboards to create the final application. And again, it's not much. It's, besides the border, it's one data layer. And I was able to put a lot of text in there. Clear and concise communication is key during times of emergency. So people say, hey, I'm in a pressure advisory. What do I do? It's right there. It's right in front of them. And this tool had one job, and that was for a customer to search their address and see if they can drink water. Only function that it needed to do. There was a toolbar, a search toolbar, and it zooms you right to it, and you're able to see the information. And I think just not having too much data for this purpose really makes an impact of just getting the point across quickly. So this was sent out with the rave notifications to customers, but also renters may not be on the water bill, so they don't know if they can drink. This was giving anyone in the county the ability to see their specific address. Our public information officers were great to get this out on social media, another great tool during a time of emergency like this. And it's been used in different statewide agencies with the utility and the city council, and we're rolling it out to kind of just be how it, from now on, you have the notifications and you also still have this. And thank you, Adam, for the great text that he sent me. I did want to throw that in there because never get good quotes for these. So like I said, it felt silly making an online map during a time where, I went home to Asheville and I still didn't have service. I was in this bubble of internet there at the EOC, but as the network started getting rebuilt on the outside, this was already in place. The word was out there, and in the less than 2 weeks we had this up, it had almost 32,000 views. And out of 80,000 customers, I'd like to think that helped. So, that's a pretty good fraction in my mind. And it is great that we were quick to get our water back. This just shows how well trained our crews are, how well we invested in infrastructure. So on October 12th, 100% of our water system had been sampled safe to drink. And by no fault of their own, living in Asheville for reference, it took me 52 days to have drinking water at my house. Almost as long just to have water in general coming out. So for our citizens to have that also let us help. We were able to give water to Buncombe County, to Asheville, to outside areas. We had a source of clean water. And this was a huge learning experience for me. Mapping off the seat of my pants, quite literally. Learned a lot of lessons. Keep your data updated. Keep it in multiple places so you can access it. And just keeping up to date with the programs like Pro, knowing that you can go through Catalog to the Portal tab, bring in your hosted data, work with it. I don't do that often in my day-to-day workflow, but I knew that. It was in the back of my mind, and it's another tool in my toolbox. And I think just submitting this for the award and having it be accepted for an innovative award, I think it just comes from necessity. Adapt and do what you can, because some data is better than no data, and a map for one person is better than a map for no one. And my favorite text that I got from my dad, he said, "Remember your training." And this is one of the first texts that I got when I got service. He meant when I was in Boy Scouts and living in a survival situation. But I think that's a great lesson. I mean, we all have education, continuing education, and I think that really just goes to show, when push comes to shove, you just have to do it. And if it's not perfect, so what? You can make it perfect later. That's me reminding myself Monday to make this better. So if you like to see more about how the city itself handled this, we do have a story map that myself and some others put out, and was a finalist for the story map competition. But I think this really shows, GIS is not a huge aspect of this, but it's a city-wide. Everyone had a role, no matter how big or how small. GIS at the time did not feel important when there's men and women out in the field repairing the water lines, getting drinking water. But it helps someone. It helps the people in the EOC tell that to the crews so they know where to go, where to fix it. And just, we're a resource for everybody. And I think we should all be proud of that. And thank you for coming again. And if anyone has any questions, try to answer them. So.
And if someone asks a question, if you would repeat it so they can
Absolutely.
The recording.
Sure. Yes.
How much time did you and other GIS folks spend in the EOC?
So the question was, how much time did we spend in the EOC? So I think it ran, if I'm not mistaken, for about 2 weeks after the storm, day or two on either end. And these were 12-hour shifts, fully staffed. I was there during the daytime shift, so we had a presence from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. the whole time. And I also wanted to mention that map came to me, the request came in the morning, it was done by lunch. That was how quick things had to be turned around. We didn't have time to wait, because there was a lot more to do. So. Yeah.
I'm sure you've been asked this a million times this weekend. It's not the weekend, this week. But if you, for this project specifically, if you could go back and do something differently, what would you change?
If I had to go back and do something differently, I don't know what I could do differently besides be prepared for something I didn't know I was supposed to be prepared for. Having all of our data updated the night before the storm. That would have been, helpful in some degree. Honestly, I don't know what you can do to prepare for some things like this. I spoke yesterday about, having templates set up, I was creating feature layers on Arc Online, just points, lines, and polygons, and then when I realized, I should put this field in, changing it on the fly, just keeping it updated. So having more of a template would be nice. Other than that, just kind of do what you got to do. Yes.
Would you be willing to share your, or not right now, just in the future, your workflow for your app for other people to use?
Absolutely, yeah. I can find a way to put that together, have a workflow.
In your area, actually, I started working at Land and Sky in Asheville last April, and trying to figure out what was happening around the region. And I'm glad to hear that this happened and is going and is helpful. It was very chaotic, but I'm looking
course.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? I'll just comment, it's kind of unique this year with our award recipients that the Herb Stout Award is meant to recognize the key thing that we're really looking for when we're evaluating these is innovation. And this year, it's not, innovation was not necessarily in the same way that you would normally think a brand new thing that's never been done before, using some brand new thing that somebody created, but innovation in a way of applying the tools that we have to a unique situation, whether that be a non-geospatial like we'll have next with Chapel Hill, or in a specific situation of unique challenge. I mean, everybody's had these same kinds of challenges, but when you've had them under the pressure situation of a disaster, that was something that really brought it forward as being unique. And several of us on the committee had worked in counties and dealt with disaster response before. You saw Sally, who was one of our keynote speakers on that panel, that she went and worked as a volunteer in Madison County. She's one of the people that's on our committee that helped choose who the recipients would be. So innovation doesn't necessarily have to be what everybody thinks it is. It can be a unique approach, a unique timing, a unique challenge, as opposed to just being a unique technology.